So we're going to just quickly look at the CASTLE framework. So if you don't know what the CASTLE framework is, it's the Consortium of Academic and Social Emotional Learning. And I have a link there. It's a document that everybody is going to and using right now for social emotional learning. And it's one that we use a lot in our school. And then I'm going to give you a bunch of ideas and best strategies that support those ideas in the CASTLE framework. And we'll have some time for questions and final thoughts. And like I said, I will share that. I shared that presentation, this presentation with you so that you can access all of the things that are in there. I always talk about our session outcomes. So, we want to learn some new things. Hopefully you'll walk away with something new. Inspire new ways to keep creative and positive with our kids, encourage collaboration between our kids and us, and affirm that you're probably already doing a really awesome job at this, and it's okay to take a deep breath. Anytime you have a conversation with a kid, you are practicing SEL strategies. Anytime you connect with a kid and smile and say, hey, how are you? You're showing them that you care and you're creating that bond. So these are just some things to kind of take it to a next level. Protocols. We're participating to learn and grow. We're presuming positive intentions. We're gonna stay muted unless we're speaking. Post in the chat box. I know how to check it from up top there, and Jen's gonna monitor that as well. And then, I know somebody had raised their hand before, so use those features. And if I ignore you, please don't think that I'm ignoring you. I can see 4 of you right now. So why do we need SEL strategies? Because we need to create a safe and supportive environment for all of our students, and not only for our students, but for us. As Joanne is a participant here, and she can tell you that in all of our meetings at school, I'm constantly saying, yeah, we need to take care of the kids, but who's taking care of us? And so we need to be considered in that environment as well. Building trust between classmates, between us, right? Especially right now. I'm not sure what your situations are, if you're hybrid, remote, in person, all of the above, but it's a lot harder to figure out what's going on with our kids when they're not in front of us all the time. So let's see how we can kind of change that a little bit through the screen. Having a better understanding of ourselves and how we interact with each other. And that goes for the kids too. Practicing empathy, seeing things from others' perspectives, and reducing negative behaviors and emotional stress. I think a lot of time we hear about PBIS and restorative justice, and those things are really important. I'm not going to talk about that stuff here though. So I wanted to do a waterfall really quickly. If you don't know what a waterfall is, it's a strategy that you can use when you're in online meetings with your students. Give them a question and have them type the answer in the box, but don't have them click send until you give them a code word. My principal's favorite is purple hippopotamus. So you can come up with whatever words you want. The kids can come up with words, but let's type in the box. Do you have time for any SEL based strategies or activities in your classes right now? So type your answer in the box. And then when I say Amaryllis, then we're all gonna click enter. So type your answers in the box in the chat. And then Amaryllis. Now everybody hits enter, and then there should be a waterfall of responses.
Do you want me to read these, Stacy? Or
I'm trying to get in there, but it's not letting me.
Well, you're sharing your screen, so it might not. So
okay.
I can tell you what I read. Sometimes, yes, Yes, morning meeting. Used to have a check-in slide at the start of each pair deck. My 092 internship is about SEL for students. Yes. So many demands of time, check-ins with students. Yes. Somebody wrote purple cookies. We are too busy. Our district built in 20 minutes per day. I actually have time built into my schedule for SEL during my morning meeting. Another yes. Yes, every day we check in. My internship is around SEL. Yes, briefly. And somebody wrote outbreak.
Love it. So the majority of us are able to put in a little bit of time there. For SEL strategies. All right. The Wheezy has woken up. Excuse me, ma'am. So if you've never seen the Castle framework, there's a link here in the presentation that you can get to it. This is just pointing out the 5 areas that they feel are the most important when it talks about SEL. So self-awareness and self-management, these two are linked together. Social awareness, relationship skills, these are linked together, and then responsible decision-making. So when we look at the framework in more detail, it gives us kind of standards and things that we can easily turn into our learning targets, our I can statements, and things that we can discuss with students in more detail. So I don't want to read everything on this document for you because you're all very smart people and know how to read. That sounded fresh. It wasn't meant to be fresh. I know that you guys don't know me and you don't know my sense of humor, and I need to remember that. But the way that I've laid out our presentation tonight is that I have some strategies for you, and I've connected those strategies to the area on this framework that they support. So that way, you can kind of link things up and blow it up more when you have that opportunity. So we're going to dive in with a code of collaboration. So a code of collaboration hits all of the 5 areas in the Castle framework. It's helping kids recognize the skills that they need to be successful. And it doesn't matter how old kids are, this is something that you should do. And you can do it at the beginning of a class. You can do it at the beginning of a unit, of a semester, anytime, just the beginning of an activity. Like, how are we going to work together to be successful in this opportunity, in this activity? So it outlines expectations. And when we're allowing kids to have voice and choice in that, they have more buy-in. So a couple ideas that you can try that you could probably get done in those 20 minutes or in that morning meeting. You can try affinity mapping, which is, asking kiddos to write down what is important. They can do that in a chat box. They can do that on a Jamboard, in a Padlet. If they're in person, they can do it on sticky notes and leave them on their desk and then share out loud. And then they can kind of look for patterns and sort those things. So you're also practicing sorting skills for all students of ages, because everybody needs practice with that sometimes. You can also do what does it look, sound, feel like? So if we're talking about, we're going to work on respect this week. What does respect look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? And you can have kids answer those questions for you and then make a group document. So a couple of examples from my students in the past is we did good classmates, good teachers, good groups, and we went around and everybody added in words to the document. And then from there, we kind of pared it down to a top 3 or 5. I can't remember if we did 3 or 5. And then we had our list of what that means. And then that gives you a thing to come back to too, when you can say, oh, Jen, were you behaving like a good classmate when you were talking when, Sarah was talking, and you can go back to that code of collaboration and have that conference with the kiddo and show them, where maybe they need to be a little bit more aware of how they're behaving. And then for our school, we have a motto of respect yourself, respect the work, and respect the communities. So we went through and talked about what those look like in our classroom so that we could be upholding the values of our school. So that's one strategy. Does anyone have any questions about codes of collaboration?
I just have a comment that it's really awesome, what you have on right now. Respect yourself, respect the work, and respect the community. That's powerful.
We've had that motto for almost the entire time that I've been at ACT. And we call the kids out and do respect checks all the time. And in all of our rooms, we have it posted, and we're constantly saying, how are you respecting the community right now? How are you respecting the performance? Like, we have a performance tonight after this, and we were talking, like, what does that look like? Like, if we're not in person on stage right now, so what is respecting this performance in this new venue? What's that going to look like? So our kids really take that to heart, and you can see it when they get called out. They're like, oh man, I don't want to not be respecting this place that we've built. So it's super helpful to have a motto like that you can go back to, that's short and sweet and gets to the point of what you're hoping from your kids.
Stacy, there's one question in the chat. Does this strategy work for students of all grade levels?
Absolutely. I think a lot of times we don't give younger kids enough credit to be able to, like, express themselves in a way. Like, if you were to ask a first or second grader, what does it look like to be, like, nice or kind in class? They'll be able to tell you something. Or what is it when you get your feelings hurt? What does that look like? I think it's the way that we phrase it. So I think that second one might be better for younger kids. The what does it look like, feel like, sound like? If someone's being kind to you, what's something that they say? And then they can tell you, like, I really like it when someone says this to me. It makes me feel happy. And so I think how we approach those things is going to matter for the age of our kids too. Did that answer your question? I don't want to be fresh.
Yes.
Awesome.
I just love, by the way, that you're saying fresh, because I think that's adorable. That's what my grandmother used to say. Don't be fresh.
Oh my gosh. I think I say it so much. I say it to the dog. I say it to my students. I say it to my boyfriend. Why are you being so Another thing that we've been doing in my classes are mindfulness activities. And I've challenged the kids on a weekly basis. I have this deck of cards that I found at TJ Maxx. They're like mindfulness cards. And so every week I pull one and give the kids a challenge. And here's a 4 ideas that you don't have to use all of them, but 4 ideas that you can think about to see what might be helpful for you and your kids. Meditative exercise. So leading your students in a body scan, a guided meditation, breath work. I post meditation videos on our Google Classroom for the kids to try. Like, oh, I found this really good one, give it a shot. Or sometimes if I can actually see their faces, if they're, turning their screens on, which in high school is very hard to get kiddos to do. and I see that they're all kind of stressed out, I'll take a break and say, let's take a couple deep breaths and we'll just do some nice breath work together. For older kids, you might have like an article response where there's an article about being mindful or a meditation or something, and they can answer some questions and talk about how they can use that in their lives, right? So sometimes I've had students say, I hate meditating. It doesn't make me calm. Okay, well, let's look at something else. If you know that that's not going to work, what's going to work for you? And you can kind of turn it around on them. A gratitude practice is another way to implement a mindfulness challenge. So in person, you can have like a happy thoughts jar. I don't know where mine is, but my best friend and I started in college where we have a jar, and every day we had to put something in the jar that made us happy. So we had all these scraps of papers and we would just put them in. And then at the end of the semesters, we would read them and like be all happy, remembering all these great things. And sometimes they're tiny little things. Like I remember writing down that I got a B on a paper from a professor who never gave anybody above a C, or that I made it home in time to watch one of my favorite shows. Sometimes that was all there was that I felt like I could be grateful for. Sometimes we're just grateful for waking up, you know. There's so many people that unfortunately we've lost during this time, and you know, there's a lot to be grateful for that maybe we don't always think about. Doing a gratitude practice like that remotely, it could be a Google form or a Jamboard or something where students can add something that they're grateful for that day. The Google form would add that level of anonymity and give students the opportunity to open up a little bit more where they don't feel like they're going to be judged. So that's also something to consider when asking kids to be vulnerable, is how am I going to give them the opportunity to be vulnerable without putting them in a situation where others might judge them. And I think with a lot of our kids, they feel, I don't think I want to use the word shame, but I think some of them might feel that way sometimes when they're sharing the things that they're happy about or grateful for, and someone else might be like, that's it, or ew, like, why are you thankful for that? So we need to be conscious of how we're letting them share things too. And the fourth option is a deck pull, like this box that like I said, found at TJ Maxx. You could also, you know, write things on popsicle sticks or put little pieces of paper in a fishbowl or something and pull one. That's always fun. And I wrote down some examples from things that we've done in class. Their challenge this week right now is a social media detox. And I'm not sure how it's going. They have not said anything about it so far, so we'll see what happens tomorrow. But anytime that you can slow down and take a moment to look at your environment, connect with your body, get out of your head for a second, can be considered something that's mindful, right? We're taking that extra time to really think about something. Oh, 5:30, okay. And I wanted to give you some student feedback about this too. So for one of our mindfulness challenges, I asked the kids to meditate, and as you can see, one kiddo was honest and said, I forgot to do it. But some of the other kids said that they wanted to work on it more, that they felt calmer after doing it. So giving them the opportunity to kind of think about how these moments can affect them outside of class is important too. And it's interesting when they feel comfortable to actually share that. And also setting intentions. That's something that we do every class. We set an intention for how we want to feel, how we want to act. We use a lot of I am statements in my classes. So like one of them was, I am awesome. And we talked about what it was like to be awesome. I think the other day it was, I am adaptable. And we talked about how we can adapt to different situations. And these don't have to take up a lot of time. It can be a few minutes, but they can be really powerful for kids. And something else that I do, and remember, I teach high school. So in my Google Classroom, I do a summary of every class for the kids, and I put our intention, and I'll post some articles that go along with whatever that intention is. So being adaptable, like what are some ways that you can be adaptable? Here's like a resource. And a lot of the kids will check out those resources on their own time. Some kids don't, and that's okay, but at least they're available for them. And I can statements, those learning targets come in here too. So one of the things that you can try is, and this will work really, I think, well with younger kids too, is using like a character trait list to create the I am statement. So if we're talking about character traits, like I am confident. So then this turns into like a vocabulary practice. You know, what does confident mean? What does that look like? Can we find any examples from like a book that we read or a movie that we watched? And then they can, you know, have that discussion, type in to a Jamboard or a Google Doc or something, and have that reference for like, this is what confident looks like. This is what confident means. And then the other thing that we can do too is the I can statements. So these will be really supportive for students with, you know, IEPs or who are on 504s who have those goals and objectives and personal needs. So, you know, a kid might say, I can, you know, respond to my teacher's email, or I can turn in 5 sentences by the end of class towards my assignment. And so those can be a lot more specific to individual kids. And you could say, everybody's going to set an I can intention today. What's something that you're going to do by the end of class? And they can write it down in their notebook, or they can share it in the chat box, and then they can check in at the end. So just like little ways of kind of getting them to be more intentional in their actions. And I think I did, yeah, so another little list. And obviously there's so many more that you can add, but I think it's always nice to have some examples to look at. You know, I am peaceful. What does peaceful look like? I can learn from mistakes. What mistake did you make today that you can learn from? How can you be helpful? So things that we can help our kids learn and figure out. Any questions on intentions and mindfulness challenges?
There is nothing that I see in the chat. I did see that somebody wrote that they use a podcast called Mind Yeti, some of their students. But I don't see any questions as of now. If anybody has anything, I suppose unmute and go ahead and ask.
Yeah, because I honestly don't really know what is next in my presentation, and I probably shouldn't admit that, but I know that there's a lot of stuff.
Okay, so I see that Dorothy Wilkerson has raised her hand. So go ahead and unmute, Dorothy.
Now, I was just thinking the morning circle and the bucket list are used in some classes for children to get in touch with their feelings and
Yes.
You know, those things are being used. The mindfulness and morning meeting, the circle. We used to do that in the mornings, but it has to be. I'm thinking there has to be consistency. It has to be consistent in order for the children to continue to grow in these areas.
Yeah, circles are great. And I think, we want to do those now, but also space and where the kids are, I think that affects it. So trying to figure out how to take the idea of a circle and kind of manipulate it to how things are right now is one of our biggest challenges. And I think you're right about the consistency. I mean, my my kiddos, they know that when they come to my class, we're going to spend a little bit of time at the beginning, like just talking and hanging out and asking questions and setting intentions and like just being human with each other, because we're missing so much of that.
Yep.
Even, go ahead.
Oh, am I still open? No, I was just saying, yep, I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, it's hard. And it's hard for us too, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm sure many of you feel the same way that I do, not being able to like high five my kids or hug them when they're crying. I mean, I know I teach high school, but high school kids still need hugs too. And it's been really hard to not be able to give them that kind of support. And so I know that I personally have just been trying everything I can think of to let them know that I still love them, even though I'm not right next to them. I teach freshmen. And so I had all my freshmen and I never got to be in a room with them, but I was able to create some relationships with those kids where I had one of the boys telling me about the picture he drew for the girl he had a crush on, and I think he should give it to her. And I'm like, you've never even really met me, and yet you still feel comfortable enough to ask me this question. Like, I must be doing something right. It's those little moments that we need a lot of to remember that we're okay. Like, it's gonna be okay.
Hey, Stacy, I see
Yes, love.
one more thing. Can you sort of explain how you would give it like instructions for students to set an intention? Maybe how you would explain what an intention is to children, to give them some idea of the instructions for how you would do that.
Yeah, I think it almost goes, it doesn't almost go, it connects with that idea of a goal. And something else that we do that I didn't put in here, but that I think is really important, is that we set a word. So we do a one word, I don't want to call it a challenge, but we pick a word that's our guiding star for our class for the semester, something that we want to come back to, something that either is going to make us feel more relaxed or something that we're striving for. And so we make like posters and hang them up in the wall when we're in school. But this year I said, I give them examples for me. Like every year I try to think of what my focus is going to be. And one year it was curious. Like that was my word. And everything that I did was because I was curious to learn more and know more. And I always came back to that word, and I like made a rock. And then this year my intention was to be intentional, right? To make decisions that were going to move me closer to whatever goal that I had set, that if I was going to do something, there was going to be a really good reason for it. And so we talk about those traits, the things that we look for in characters, right? Like, is this person organized? Is this person kind? What do you want to be? So it's almost like a core values kind of thing too. Like, what kind of person do you want to be? If you're going to set your intention, what is that going to be for today? What is that going to look like? I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, I thought that was great. I'll
Okay.
see if there's any more feedback in the chat on that, but no, that sounded good.
Okay. So the next thing that a lot of us probably do already are reflections. These quick formative assessments kind of help us get a pulse on what's going on, either with activities or with kids themselves. And the way that I've been doing it recently has been with the Google form. Once you make one reflection sheet on a Google form, all you have to do is make copies of it to pass it out again, and then you have that data. And that's great data too for PPTs and 504s, for evaluations, for anything. And I made a video here that you can click on and watch about making those Google form reflections. And I'm loving it. The kids, I think, are annoyed with me that I'm making them do all these reflections, but they're doing them anyway. But it's been so helpful for me to kind of see more of what's happening, because for me in class, my kids are not being as vocal as they would be if they were in the classroom. And it's a lot harder for me to kind of figure out who needs what and what's happening. So this has been instrumental to our success this year. So these are just some options for different kinds of reflections. Probably nothing new for any of you. A 3-2-1. So like for an activity, 3 new pieces of learning, 2 things you found interesting, 1 question you still need answered. 2 stars and a wish, 2 things that you enjoyed and a question, or something that you would change. The rosebud thorn. This is one that you could probably, if you're in person, you could kind of make a picture and have kids kind of fill out next to the picture. So the rose is the success, the bud is an opportunity. So something that you could probably do better if you really thought about it. And the thorn was something that you were struggling with. And then a rating scale. So, giving kids those I can statements and having them self-assess. And I made a video on that one because I don't know if people know how to use pictures and things in Google Forms. So I think that's that video. And so some questions that you might think to ask kiddos, like how focused were you? Did you enjoy class today? How hard did you try? Did you feel included? What was confusing today? Your favorite part of class? What could I have done differently to help you today? And I think that's important for kids to see too, is that you want to know what you can do better for them. There are teachers out there who have egos, and their egos sometimes make it difficult for them to hear feedback from our students about what could be different or what could be better or what they need. And our job is to do what's best for our kids. And I think sometimes it's hard to remember that it's not always about us. I know I have felt that way in the past, where I worked really hard on an activity and then it didn't go well, and I would at first get frustrated with the kids, but then I would, try to step back and say, but it's not their fault. So what needs to be different? What do I need to do differently so that we can all be successful? And I think when we get to that place, it's showing our students that not only do their voices matter, but that we're also willing to change and grow. And I've always believed that if I'm not willing to do something, I have zero right to ask my students to do that. And if I'm expecting them to behave themselves and to manage their emotions and to trust me and talk to me about things, and I have to be willing to do that stuff too. And so I always include a question in my reflection about like, what do they need from me, or what can I change for the next class? And sometimes they tell me nothing. And sometimes they say, you're doing awesome, Miss V, don't worry. But sometimes they'll be like, I need you to slow down because you talk really fast. And then I'm like, oh, I do, I'm sorry. So it's a chance for us all to kind of learn and grow.
Stacy,
Yes,
there's
love.
a couple things in the chat. Somebody is asking, you know, as you go through these activities, if you could give your opinion on sort of what the best platform is. You know, for example, you know, Nearpod or Jamboard. I think it's a little bit about what you were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
using your discretion for what could possibly be sensitive to students and keeping them comfortable. So
Yeah.
if there are particular things you would recommend with some of these, if you wouldn't mind mentioning those as well. People have also said sometimes when someone asks them a question, they'll ask it sort of back and say, what do you think?
Yeah.
Or if you answer a question saying, you know, does that help? Sort of checking in to make sure that
Yeah.
you're fulfilling that need.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've done it several times. Like, did I answer your question? I just did it this morning with some kids. I was like, wait, was that what you were asking me? Did I go off on a tangent, or did I answer your question? To be honest, I don't know anything about Nearpod. I know that a lot of people use it, and I think next week I'm in a professional development learning about it. I tend to just use the Google platform because that's what my students are the most familiar with. I mean, Padlet is also a good option, and it's easy to kind of figure out, and the kids can, I have a Padlet video in here somewhere. Flipgrid, I think, is easy for kids to kind of figure out, and you could have like a video aspect to that. But we use mostly, like I use mostly a Google form, a Jamboard with the sticky notes. I use Google Slides a lot for activities, and Google Docs. So I really kind of I would stick to what your kids know. And I think that the more we throw out at them, if no one else is using it, then it's going to be like so much. So our students have, you know, multiple classes, multiple teachers, and everybody is doing something different. And so I want to keep it as simple as possible because I don't want to add to their stress about where am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to be doing? What password is this? How do I do this? So I really just stick to the Google. I don't know what other people are using in their schools or what they have available to them. And I think you should also ask the kids, like, where do you want to do this? What's going to work best for you? That's what I would think. I don't know. The next little bit here, crap, is, all right, I'm going to go super fast because we're almost over. Emotional catalogs is just another way of doing a reflection. If you know the ruler approach from the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence, the book Permission to Feel by Mark Brackett, they talk about this grid where kids can kind of like grid themselves and figure out what color the emotion is. And a big part of the ruler approach is like naming the feeling. So having a grid like this is something that you could do, or on a Google form super simple is to kind of put the picture of the feeling and then have kids say, how are you feeling today? And just click on one thing. So I did this with one of my classes and I put like the Google form response. So within 3 minutes, I had a pulse on how everybody in the class was feeling that day. And then that gave me the opportunity to kind of check in a little bit more and more deeply with certain kids. This is something that you could do too with younger kids is, you know, have them draw what the picture looks like. Okay. You can have them draw pictures and or choose them themselves, like have them submit what does nervous look like, what does angry look like, and you could get the kids involved that way, because the more voice and choice that they have, the better as well. So emotional catalogs are really great too. I know I'm going quickly, but I want to, you have access to this so you can go through it more at your own pace too. I just want to get some things. The question of the day. So these two links here, the Jamboard link and the Padlet link, are videos about creating Jamboards and Padlets. So if you have not used them, you can click on these links to watch a, I think like 5 or 6 minute video that I made about how to make them and use them in your classes. We do questions of the day every single day. We have so much fun with them. The kids will submit questions. I come up with questions. Sometimes they're about things that we're doing. Sometimes they're totally random. This week, well, today's question was, and this is just how, you know, fun they can be. I looked over at my bookshelf and I saw the Bob's Burgers cookbook. It's the Joke Burgers. I don't know if anybody knows or has watched Bob's Burgers, but it's an animated show. And Bob owns a diner, and he has burgers, burger of the day, on the chalkboard in the back, and they're so funny. And so the creators of the show put together a cookbook with real recipes for Joke Burgers. So today's question of the day was to build your yummiest burger. Like if you could have any burger that you wanted, what would it be? And there were kids that were like, I want a veggie burger with this on it. I don't like burgers, so this is like what kind of sandwich I would like. They're just fun ways to kind of get to know each other a little bit better. So just some examples of questions that we have done in the past. If you could add anything to our school, what would it be? There were some really interesting answers for that one. If you could plan a field trip, where would you want to go? What's something that you wish older people knew about your generation? So you could get deep with these questions, but you could also be like, who's your favorite superhero? Which could also be deep. The skydiving and mountain climbing question sent us into hysterics with my juniors, because I happen to live near an airport that does skydiving, but I also live near a cow farm, a dairy farm, and I was telling them this story and we just started laughing so much because the story just kept getting more and more involved, and then they were adding things and we were just all laughing and just had such a moment of joy. And at the end of class, they were like, Miss V, I don't know the last time I laughed like that. That was awesome. And that was more than anything I ever needed to hear, right? Because sometimes our kids don't get to laugh. Sometimes we don't get to laugh, and we need to have those moments. So questions of the day can be super awesome and helpful and fun, but also they could, you know, like I said, be really deep and meaningful. So this is some student feedback from a reflection at the end of a semester, that they enjoyed the questions of the day because of all of the random answers, and they got to socialize, they got to talk about their thoughts and feelings around some issues. And I have older kids, so we would sit around with our mugs of coffee and tea while we were doing our questions of the day, and just kind of, pretend that we were in a cafe somewhere just hanging out. But the kids really like it, and they like to hear your answers too. And you don't have to give them your whole life, but it's fun to kind of participate with them, because then they get to see you as someone beyond just their teacher. And that helps build that trust.
Just real quick, Stacy, somebody asked, when do you do the question of the day? In the beginning of class?
I do. So there's a bunch of different ways that you could do it. You could have your screen sharing as the kids are coming into the meeting with the question up there, like just on a Google Doc or on a slide deck, so that you can have multiple questions ready to go. I make it a point to say hello to every kid. So I'll say, hello, Joanne. Hello, Dorothy. Hello, Jen. What's up? How's it going? How was your day? And then when everybody's kind of in the room, then I'll put it in the chat box and we'll start going, and I'll read people's answers out loud, and then we'll have like a little conversation. Takes about maybe 5 minutes, sometimes longer, depending on how interested we are in the question. But I am very willing to give up those 5 or 10 minutes of my content just to have some sort of semblance of normalcy with my kids. And I know for some teachers that's probably going to be harder to do. I know I'm really fortunate where I teach, where I don't have a lot of overhead and oversight, and you have to be here at this point and this and that. So I know that I'm lucky that I can take time away from my content. And to be honest, there have been days where we never even got to the content. We just talked. And I will always fight for those days and stand up and support anybody who has those days, because I think it's important when our kids want to talk that we give them the opportunity to do that. That's not to say that we should let them kind of do that all the time, or let them easily distract us from what we're supposed to do. But sometimes the conversation needs to be had, and that can be the lesson in itself right there. So if you are not going to get in trouble, I highly recommend that sometimes you take that extra time. But I don't want you to get in trouble. Icebreakers. I know icebreakers can be super lame-o-tamo, and everybody's like, icebreaker, 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 but sometimes they can be fun ways to break things up and get us working together or talking to somebody that maybe we haven't gotten to talk to. And they don't have to be these super high stress things. So it's just a list of 10 different icebreakers. There's 5 on each slide. So, having kiddos describe something within reach without using the word or telling you what it is. And this could even be a classroom activity with whatever you're reading. It could be, in history class or in your history unit, where you're talking about a historical figure and describing them without saying who it is. How is somebody going to know who this person is, or characters in a book? A song of the day. You can have your kiddos submit their favorite and appropriate songs have them ready to go, and then, break up your class with, 30-second dance breaks whenever they see it or hear it. We're just going to kind of move around and get the wiggles out. That's always fun. A chat box story. So you can write in the first line, and then a student has to write the next line, and so on and so on. That's a fun writing activity, but it's also collaborative and creative. Think of 5 nouns to describe yourself. We don't usually describe ourselves with nouns, but you could do this with other parts of speech too, as part of language practice. And think of, again, historical people, characters in books, inanimate objects, science things. 5 nouns to describe a tree. I don't know what that would be, but you can try. You can have the students submit questions that they want to know, and you can, pull from that list. They might want to know who has a dog, or how many windows are in your house, or something like that. I don't think they want to know about windows, but creating a playlist, a 3-song playlist, could give clues about you as a person, your favorite songs or songs that are meaningful to you. And you could also, again, this could be an activity for your content, book characters, historical figures, even a periodical element, like on the periodical table. Ask students what they think they're experts in, and then set aside a few minutes for sharing. So if one of your students is like, I am an expert at embroidery or making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, give them some time to kind of share that with everybody and show them what they're excited about. You can have a meme challenge, so they can submit a photo or a meme, and then they can caption it. This could be something that they took. It could have to do with something that you're doing in class. It could just be random fun. A scavenger hunt. We did one for our whole school and had our cohorts run around and do the scavenger hunt. And I was really mindful about the things that I was asking the kiddos to find. So instead of saying, like, being really specific, I would say find something that's yellow. So that way it would open it up to a lot more options, or something that's letter O. Find something that is a triangle. Because you don't want to ask students for things that not every kid would have. That's going to isolate some students and make them feel hurt. And we don't want to do that. And I don't think we do it a lot intentionally. I think unintentionally it happens more than I think we want to realize or recognize. And then the last icebreaker could be a movement break, so students can plan that. So, you could call, we're going to have a movement break. Dominic, what's our move going to be? And, maybe Dominic says, we're going to, touch our toes 10 times or something. And that's just a fun little way to kind of get kids moving and working together, and kind of de-stressing a little bit. I think I'm almost, oh yeah, goal and habit setting. I'm almost done. We're almost through all of the strategies that I've got for you. We all know that goal setting is really important, habit tracking. So I've got a few different ways to kind of embed this into our worlds with our kids. We're all aware of SMART goals, and I kind of change it a little bit when I give it to my kids, because I think that they need a little bit more support than just the SMART part. So I ask them, what do they want to accomplish? Why is that their goal? What steps are going to help them accomplish that goal? who needs to be included and when do you want to do this, like the end date and the timeline. And then I have them arrange it and organize it however it makes sense for them. So some kids will do an outline, some kids will do a web, like with the goal in the middle and then little the spider webs off of it with more information. Some kids might make a little chart and a checklist. But I think that what I see a lot of times is that we try to have kids do things the same way, and that's not what's best for them a lot of times. What works for one kid is not going to work for another kid. So I always make sure that I say, this is how I would do it, but here's some other options that might be more beneficial for you. So let's try to find something that helps you be successful. And then another goal setting moment could be those I can statements, using the learning targets as their goals. And then having the students help create the criteria for success. When they have that say, right? When they know what they're supposed to be doing, they have more buy-in. So I know a lot of us, we're in the process of thinking about our, essential standards and coming up with rubrics for our learning targets and stuff. And part of me is like, that's great, but what if what I think is successful isn't what's going to be successful for one of my kids? So I think the more that we can get our students involved in that part, the better it is for everyone. But what do I know? A habit tracker is an awesome thing to give students visual cues. They can have like a monthly grid, a weekly grid. I see these a lot in the stores, like the chore charts, and you get stickers when you do your chores. These can be exit slips. They can stay in the classroom in folders or portfolios. This is another data point for those 504 and PPT meetings, for evaluations, for parent communications. And again, getting the students involved in their own success. Like, were you able to do this? I put a goal for the month of taking a daily walk, and that's outside of class, which is fine. But if a kiddo's goal is to, write down their assignments every day, and that's their exit slip, and they have to, mark off in the chart that they did it or not, then you can call mom or dad or grandma or auntie and say, your kiddo only did this 4 days out of this week, or well, actually 4 days out of 5 days is really pretty awesome for a kid. But it gives you the more power when having conversations with the kids too. Like, this was your goal and you decided to track it, and let's check in and see what's happening, because there's a lot of empty circles or a lot of empty boxes. So what do we have to do now? What do we need to change? How are we going to be adaptable? So I linked this one for you. It's just a super basic, simple one. And there's all sorts of free templates online that have like pictures that are broken up into the month, and there's habit trackers for all sorts of things that you could probably find depending on what you want or need. And then the last thing is just like a vision board. This is a visual way to set a goal. Collect things that are important that you want to accomplish, that you want to get to. And this could be a more long-term kind of thing. Pinterest. I linked Canva. Canva actually has a free resource to make online vision boards that you can upload photos to. And it can be pretty cool. I'm sure there's other programs. You could probably do it in Google Slides, no problem. Or a Google Doc, or any of a Padlet would be great for a vision board. Or if you're in school, go old school and cut things out of magazines. I'm I still love doing that. I'm 41 and I love to make vision boards. There's something like super relaxing about it. So those are some goal and habit tracking things. I think if my memory serves me right, yes. So we've come to the end of our strategy road. And I just have like 5 quick things. Many of you said that you have time. You've got, up to 20 minutes. And that's awesome. If you can take 10 or 15 minutes each day to do something, some sort of check-in or ask kids questions or something, that's the best. Figure out how to get the kids involved. We do so much work already. How can we get them to do some of the work? We want to model those behaviors that we want to see. So if we want our kids to be adaptable, then we have to be adaptable. If we want our kids to remain calm, then we have to remain calm. And I think it's important too to talk it out sometimes. Even with my high schoolers, I have to say, okay, I am not calm right now. And so here's what I'm going to do to try to get myself back into a place where I am not feeling this way, which is, it's number 4, right? Like, let your kiddos know that you're human. You don't have to give them all the details of your life and tell them what's bothering you, but you can let them know when you're having feelings. And maybe that's the start of a conversation. I have said to my kids, I'm really upset right now and I don't know what to do. Like, what do you do when you're upset? And they'll give me ideas and say, well, this works for me. And I'll say, okay, thanks. I really appreciate that. And then just give yourself and your kiddos some grace. Again, this is like the craziest time in the world right now. And sometimes we just have to put content on hold and we need to connect as people as first. And we have to do what's right for our kids and for ourselves. If my classes are not writing 3 research papers this year, then that's fine by me. I would rather them write 1 research paper and feel whole than write 3 and be a mess. So sometimes that stuff has to wait. I see all this stuff online about how our kids are falling behind and it just came out that standardized tests are not being taken off the table this year and we're going to have to test our kids and just like, they're not behind. They're just in a different place and we need to be able to support them where they are. And what do those tests, really tell us about these kids? I know teachers aren't always supposed to voice that stuff out loud, but the SATs don't tell me anything about my kids. The conversations that we have and the way that they treat people and their curiosity and their ability to be flexible, that's what's more important to me than whether or not they, break 1,000 on the SAT. I'm sure you all feel some of the same frustrations and we're, like I said before, we are all doing the best that we can and we are doing an amazing job because we care about our kids and we care about our colleagues and that's what matters. That I think is the end. That's a cute picture of me. This is my personal email, svocasek@gmail.com. And I do have a Twitter that I use sometimes. So you can like tweet me. And I do some stuff. I was lucky enough to present at the Teach conference in DC a couple of summers ago. And last year, one of my webinars was the top 10 of 2020. I don't know. I don't like talking about myself like that, but I just want to be helpful. I hope that something that that I said or I shared gave you an idea, confirmed that you're doing something awesome right now. I don't know. I'm going to stop talking now. So if anybody have any questions?
Stacy, you are adorable. And there were at least 3 or 4 times when I started to almost tear up from the stuff you were saying, because you are so absolutely spot on with understanding that the most important thing we can do now more than ever is to love our kids and to do anything we can to connect with them, because that's what's going to keep them in the right place when everything else, it might not be going so well. I am going to make you plug yourself one more time and let people know about the Share My Lesson virtual conference that AFT National is putting on. There's going to be a ton of great TV, and the amazing Stacy is going to be doing something there as well. So she's going to tell you about that, and I'm going to throw into the chat the website for you guys to check out how to register for that conference.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. John Frito, I got distracted, Miss Georgina. When I was a freshman in high school, I had a music teacher named John Frito. And I don't know if you are at all related. He lived in Enfield, and yes. So any John Frito is a friend of mine. He was awesome. Okay, so Share My Lesson. Jen posted the site there. So there's going to be webinars from people all over the country, and the one that I'm going to be presenting is about collaboration through using technology. So some of the things that I kind of touched on here will be in that, but Jen, it's very similar to the one that we did in the fall together. So some more classroom activities, not so much SEL stuff, but like how we can take some of the cool things that we used to do in person in our classes and kind of transform it for the screen and make things more interactive for our kiddos. And so I'm really excited. I feel bad sometimes because I put so much in the thingies and then I forget what I'm talking about. And then I'm like, well, is this even helpful? And I second guess myself a lot, but I just want to share as much as I can with everybody who will listen to me. And I'm not saying I'm an expert, because there's a ton of people out there that know way more than I do. But if I can share something that inspires another teacher or make a connection, then that's enough for me. Someone asked me for my email address.
My meeting's over almost.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, questions?
I want to know if you want to put about a shower.
Hi, I have a question because I never received the link for this and I missed like 20 minutes of it. And you mentioned something, then we can check your presentation online. How can I find out?
Here, I'll put the I will put the link to the presentation again. Hold on one second.
And I will send out a copy of this recording to you and to everybody else who registered for it. So you will definitely be able to check out the whole thing from start to finish.
Okay, but the only thing, because I when I sign up, I never received the email with the link for Zoom. I had to like contact the person who texted me yesterday asking if I can come.
I would say to check your spam folder and just see if perhaps it ended up in a spam or a junk folder. Because we did send it out to everybody.
All right.
That might be what happened. But I'm glad that you made it.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. And also, honestly, feel free to reach out about anything. Like my expertise is putting art, the fine and performing arts, into content areas. So if you want to know anything about how to incorporate paintings and music and poetry and stuff into your content, no matter what content it is, reach out, because that's my That's my bag, baby. That's what I do the best.
All right. Does anybody else have anything else? Thank you so much, Stacy. Obviously the feedback in the chat is already spectacular. Again, if you guys want to give more feedback at the very beginning of the chat, if you scroll all the way up to the top, is a survey to be able to say how amazing Stacy is and how helpful all of her, hands-on strategies are. I agree with you, Stacy. I think that's what people want, is something they can use tomorrow. The theory is great, but the practicality is something that I always appreciate in your presentations.
Yeah, and if you have any suggestions too on how I can be better, please let me know.